G'day. Today we're going to examine the concept of what it means to be a local in rural Tasmania. I'm a sixth generation Tasmanian. My ancestor James Harrison was a convict, exiled in 1842. My great-grandfather Percy fought at Gallipoli and died on the Somme. And my father, well, you'll hear about him in an upcoming episode. So I'm pretty much as Tasmanian as you can get, except for those Tasmanians who have 20, 30, 50, 60, 100 generations. I'm talking about the Aboriginal Tasmanians. In 1995, I moved here to Police Point, and I was working locally in Dover, about 10 k's down the road from here. And I remember there was a discussion at our workplace about our boss who chose to move or to remain in Hobart and travel each day. And one staff member felt it was inappropriate because the boss didn't live locally. So I commented that whenever I'd worked rurally, I'd always made sure that I lived locally. And this person looked at me with a look of disdain on her face and said, "You don't live locally, you live at Police Point." And that's when I knew exactly how the concept of local exists here in far south Tasmania. So when I moved here to Police Point in 1995, the fish farm behind me at Police Point pre-existed my arrival. It didn't make any noise, apart from the occasional towboat at night, and it certainly didn't make anywhere near as much noise as the log trucks that would come down this road behind me past my house at 3:30 in the morning. But I digress, because 10 years after I moved down here, as I mentioned in the previous video, the person who we'll call Carmen moved to Petches Bay directly across the river where another fish farm existed. I purchased a property directly in front of a fish farm and then immediately complained about it. So Carmen is one of those people that in the far south Tasmania we would refer to as a blow-in. And let's examine that a little bit further. So the next character we're going to examine is a character who I'll call Donald. Now Donald arrived here in Lonavale in the Huon Valley shortly after Carmen arrived at Petches Bay. Donald arrived in 2009 and almost instantly started complaining about the Russell River, which you see behind us. Although in a post on Tasmanian Times in 2015, he said he'd been complaining about this for 8 years, so maybe he started complaining about it before he even arrived here, before he even purchased his property. But anyway, Donald believed that the Huon Aquaculture Hatchery, 2 k's upstream from his house, was contaminating the waterways of this river. Donald farmed pigs alongside the river and drew his water from the river. After Donald complained about the salmon hatchery, which he's done so for the last 10-12 years, Donald then really got on a roll. He complained about the council spraying the verges of the road. He then complained about the people on the council. He complained about council elections. He complained about mints being handed out at council meetings. He complained about a new turning lane on the Huon Highway, making traffic actually safer. And above all, he complains about people who complain about him. And I'll probably get a complaint about this. Now, I'm sure that Donald actually has a heart of gold. And he really does care about the environment. He cares how things should be done locally. But unfortunately, he's not just happy enough to live here and enjoy this amazing environment by the Russell River. Because Donald believes that he knows better than the rest of us. And he's going to bloody well tell us so. So Donald is your classic blow-in. And for all his bluster, it's not surprising that few people actually take him seriously. This is my mate Dave's house. Dave is a highly paid professional who lives in Queensland. This is not so much a shack as more like a second house, considering the amount of time that he spends here. Now Dave, as a newcomer, will never be a local, but he engages in a whole heap of local events. He's a member of the sailing club. He goes to the RSL whenever he's down here. He buys his $50 worth of lucky tickets, and he contributes greatly. And there's one thing that Dave will never be, is a blow-in, because Dave is as opinionated as they come, but he doesn't inflict his opinions upon the other people that he lives around. He doesn't come here from interstate bringing different views and wanting to impose those views upon the people who previously lived here. He wants to get along. He wants to engage and join in. And if those views do change over time, well, all good and well. And then there's Lena. Now, Lena and her husband moved down here to the far south about 2005, maybe a bit earlier. They've involved themselves in everything in the community, from sports clubs to community action groups to town committees. They've really become involved in the community. But unfortunately, Lena will never be a local, not just because she's moved here, but because Lena is seen as a blow-in. Lena bought a property on top of one of the hills overlooking Port Esperance and the Channel. An amazing view. Not the best view in Dover, probably not the second best, but pretty close to that. They built a really spectacular house with dynamic vistas, and chose not to fit any curtains so as to not interrupt the view. And then they complained about the light from the salmon farm that had been there for 25 years before they arrived. And they didn't just complain quietly, they complained quite loudly and joined some anti-salmon farming groups. And that's why Lena, no matter how much she contributes to this local community, will never be seen as a local, but will always be seen as a bloody blow-in. The one thing that our three blow-ins, Donald, Carmen and Lena, have in common is that they initially started out complaining about something that was literally in their backyard. Admittedly, something that they probably should have checked out before purchasing that backyard, but never mind. Donald with his water supply, Lena with the lights, and Carmen with the noise from the farm that she bought a house in front of. But they weren't satisfied. Unable to get a win with their backyard problem, they embarked upon bigger things, all involving themselves as now seasoned campaigners against the salmon industry. Starting with one tiny thing that irritated them, now their solution is to shut down an entire industry. They became more than just NIMBYs, they became full-on blow-ins, becoming active and dedicated campaigners against the salmon industry. So I guess it pays to actually check things out before you come here and then not have things dominate your lives, which in reality have made none of their lives for the better. So what is a local and what is a blow-in? Well, me, as I said, sixth generation Tasmanian. I've lived in the far south for 25 years and I'll never be a local, although some quite influential people have said that I am a local, so maybe there's a transition point. When I speak up for the salmon farming, I'm definitely more local than not. Yet when I spoke up for salmon farming in opposition to a proposed woodchip port just over here, to some people in the community, I was definitely just another bloody blow-in. So it is a very fine line in which to tread. It's all a matter of getting along with your community and not trying to be something supposedly better than the people who have lived here for a very long time. Community, be part of it and enjoy it.